Imagine being a child, adored by millions, your face on magazine covers, your name in lights. Now imagine that same child, years later, forgotten, addicted, or worse, dead before their time. This is the dark reality behind Hollywood's golden age, where the studio system treated young stars as disposable commodities. Today, we delve into the tragic stories of 20 child actors whose lives ended in heartbreak, revealing a system that exploited their talent and discarded them when they were no longer profitable. And among them, one story stands out as particularly devastating. Number 2 will leave you speechless. Let's start with Bobby Driscoll, Disney's first contracted child star. At 12, he won an Academy Award for The Window and voiced Peter Pan, the boy who never grows up. But growing up was his downfall. When puberty hit, his voice changed and severe acne marred his face. Disney, once calling him their living treasure, terminated his contract abruptly. Escorted off the lot like a criminal, Bobby's dreams shattered. With no support, he turned to drugs to numb the pain. By 31, he was found dead in an abandoned tenement, his body unclaimed for over a year. According to the research materials, his mother learned of his death 18 months later via a private investigator. The boy who brought magic to millions died believing he was worthless. Judy Garland, immortalized as Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz, faced relentless torment. MGM enforced grueling schedules, forcing her to take amphetamines to stay thin and barbiturates to sleep. The research materials reveal she was put on a diet of black coffee, chicken soup, and 80 cigarettes a day to suppress her appetite, cementing a cycle of drug dependency. Constantly told she was too fat and not pretty enough, Judy battled addiction and mental health issues her entire life. She died at 47 from an overdose. Her story a stark reminder of fame's destructive power. Carl Alfalfa Switzer, known for Our Gang, created an iconic character with his cowlick and cracking voice. But his parents treated him like a cash machine, spending his earnings on lavish purchases, leaving nothing for his future. When he aged out at 16, Carl had no education or skills beyond acting, struggling with bit parts and bartending. He grew bitter, fueled by alcohol and a volatile temper. On January 21st, 1959, a dispute over a $50 debt led to his death at 31. Shot by Moses Stilts in a controversial incident ruled as justifiable homicide. The research materials note his sparsely attended funeral, underscoring Hollywood's failure to support him. Dorothy Dandridge, a pioneering African-American actress, broke barriers with Carmen Jones in 1954, becoming the first black woman nominated for Best Actress. Yet, she faced relentless discrimination, barred from premier hotels and restaurants. Her secret interracial relationship with director Otto Preminger ended in a forced abortion, causing deep emotional scars. Her abusive marriage to Jack Dennison drained her finances. By the 1960s, roles dried up and she turned to pills and alcohol. On September 8, 1965, she died at 42 from an overdose of tofranil, possibly intentional. The research materials highlight how Hollywood exploited her talent while marginalizing her humanity. These stories reveal a pattern. As the research materials state, in the glamorous golden age of Hollywood, child stars were the ultimate commodity. Studios made fortunes off their dimpled smiles and precocious talent. But what happened when the camera stopped rolling reveals a systematic exploitation that would shock modern audiences. Studios controlled every aspect of these children's lives, while parents often prioritized profit over well-being, pocketing earnings and leaving their kids vulnerable. Jackie Coogan, who starred in The Kid with Charlie Chaplin. California passed the Coogan Act in 1939. Jackie earned millions, but at 21, he discovered his parents had spent everything on mansions and cars, leaving him penniless. The research materials note, his mother and stepfather had spent lavishly buying mansions, cars, and investments, while telling Jackie the money was being saved for his future. The Coogan Act required 15% of child actors' earnings to be set aside in a trust fund, inaccessible until adulthood. It seemed like a solution to protect young performers. But the Coogan Act had significant limitations. It only applied in California, prompting some productions to relocate to avoid regulations. Moreover, 15% was often insufficient for financial security, especially for short-lived careers. The law also failed to address the emotional and psychological toll of fame. It didn't protect stars from studio pressures, lack of normalcy, or parental exploitation. The Coogan Act, enacted in 1939 in California, was a landmark piece of legislation designed to protect child actors' earnings after Jackie Coogan discovered his parents had spent most of his millions. The law mandates that 15% of a child actor's gross earnings be placed in a trust, known as a Coogan account, to be accessed upon reaching adulthood. Despite this, financial exploitation remains a significant issue, as seen in the case of Gary Coleman. Coleman, who earned approximately $100,000 per episode at the height of Different Strokes, expected his trust fund to hold up to $18 million. However, when he sought to access it at 17, he found only $220,000, as his parents and advisors had mismanaged his funds. He sued them, settling for $1.3 million, but ongoing medical expenses and legal battles led to bankruptcy in 1999. This case reveals the limitations of the Coogan Act, which only protects a small portion of earnings and relies on responsible management of the remaining funds. Dana Plato also faced financial difficulties, though less is documented about her specific financial mismanagement. After being written off Different Strokes due to her pregnancy, she struggled to find work, resorting to low-budget films and adult movies. Substance abuse is a recurring issue among child actors, often stemming from the pressures of fame and lack of guidance. Dana Plato's struggles began during her time on Different Strokes, with a diazepam overdose at age 14. Her addiction escalated, leading to arrest in 1991 for robbing a video store and in 1992 for forging a prescription. These legal troubles, combined with her inability to secure meaningful roles, contribute to her downward spiral, culminating in her death at 34 from a drug overdose, later ruled a suicide. Gary Coleman, a case study in financial mismanagement. Gary Coleman, known for his role as Arnold Jackson in Different Strokes, 1978 to 1986, is a prominent example of the Coogan Act's limitations. At the height of his career, Coleman earned approximately $100,000 per episode, totaling an estimated $18 million over the series run. The Coogan Act required 15% of his gross earnings to be placed in a trust, which should have amounted to millions. However, when Coleman sought to access his trust at 17, he found only $220,000. In 1989, Coleman sued his parents and manager, alleging misappropriation of over $1 million. A judge found in his favor in 1993, awarding $1.28 million, but the settlement was reduced to $1.3 million after negotiations. Despite this, Coleman's financial troubles persisted due to ongoing medical expenses for kidney disease, legal fees, and limited acting opportunities post-Different Strokes. In 1999, he filed for bankruptcy, and his financial struggles continued until his death in 2010 from a brain hemorrhage. Coleman's case highlights the Coogan Act's primary limitation. It protects only 15% of earnings, leaving the majority vulnerable to mismanagement. The Act relies on the integrity of parents or guardians to responsibly handle the remaining funds, which, as seen in Coleman's case, is not always guaranteed. Mental health challenges. Mental health struggles are a critical but often overlooked aspect of child stardom. Jonathan Brandis, who rose to fame with Sequest DSV and The Neverending Story 2, faced significant challenges as his career stalled after the cancellation of Sequest. His role in Heart's War was significantly reduced, a blow to his hopes of reviving his career. Friends reported that Brandis became depressed and began drinking heavily, and his father later suggested he may have suffered from bipolar disorder. His suicide at 27 underscores the need for mental health support for child actors, particularly during the difficult transition to adult roles. The pressure to maintain fame and the loss of privacy are significant challenges for child actors. Ron Howard, who began acting at age 2 on The Andy Griffith Show, faced the challenge of being typecast as Opie Taylor and later Richie Cunningham on Happy Days. He spoke of the pressure to prove himself beyond these roles, eventually transitioning to directing, where he won an Academy Award for A Beautiful Mind. His father's guidance and a stable upbringing helped him navigate these challenges, but the pressure to redefine his career was ever present. Jodie Foster, starting at age 3, faced even more intense scrutiny. Her role in Taxi Driver at 12 brought critical acclaim, but also made her a target of obsession, most notably by John Hinckley Jr., who attempted to assassinate President Reagan to impress her. Foster has spoken about the lack of privacy and the struggle to be taken seriously in mature roles, yet she persevered, winning 2 Academy Awards. Both Howard and Foster's successes came at a personal cost, including the loss of a normal childhood and constant public scrutiny. The media's obsession with scandal further complicates these challenges. For Plato, Coleman, and Brandes, their struggles were sensationalized, with tabloids and talk shows amplifying their misfortunes. This lack of privacy can hinder recovery, as every misstep becomes a headline, reinforcing a narrative of failure. Ron Howard and Jodie Foster stand out as exceptions among child actors, having built successful adult careers. Howard's transition to directing allowed him to escape typecasting, and his father's guidance provided a stable foundation. Foster's resilience in the face of trauma and her determination to pursue serious roles led to a distinguished career. However, their successes are not the norm, and both have acknowledged the personal cost of their early fame, including privacy loss and the pressure to constantly prove themselves. The Coogan Act and its limitations. The Coogan Act, while a significant step toward protecting child actors, has limitations that allow exploitation to persist. It requires 15% of child actors' earnings to be placed in a trust, but the remaining 85% can be mismanaged, as seen in Coleman's case. Updates to the law in 2019 have aimed to close loopholes, but enforcement remains a challenge. The Act also does not address the emotional and psychological needs of child actors, which are critical for their long-term well-being. Peggy Ann Twistle, though not a traditional child star, her tragedy at 24 epitomizes Hollywood's cruelty. Born in 1908, Peggy conquered Broadway, hailed as the next Bette Davis. In 1932, she signed with RKO for 13 Women, believing it would be her big break. But the film was a disaster, with her role cut to a mere glimpse. Critics panned it, with one writing, as noted in the research materials, 13 Women should have been called 13 Minutes. That's how long audiences will last before walking out. This crushed Peggy, who had left a thriving Broadway career. Her personal life added to her despair. A hidden marriage ended when she discovered her husband was still married to another and had a criminal record. On September 16, 1932, Peggy told her uncle she was going to the drugstore. Instead, she walked to Mount Lee, climbed the ladder behind the Hollywood signs H, and jumped to her death. Her suicide note read, "I am afraid I am a coward. I am sorry for everything." Tragically, the next morning, a letter arrived from the Beverly Hills Playhouse offering her a lead role, a potential comeback. It was one day too late. The research materials call her the Hollywood sign's first victim, a symbol of broken dreams. Brandon DeWilde, who starred in Shane at 11. His iconic line, "Shane, come back," made him a sensation, but he never wanted fame, aspiring to be a serious actor. Hollywood typecast him, and as roles dried up, he turned to drinking and reckless behavior. In 1972, at 30, he died in a car accident, possibly influenced by his self-destructive tendencies. The research materials note his funeral played as Shane audio, highlighting the contrast between his hopeful youth and tragic end. Heather O'Rourke, who played Carol in Poltergeist, faced abuse by powerful industry figures. Her death at 12 from a rare medical condition, possibly worsened by stress, was later tied to broader industry abuse by #MeToo revelations. Judith Barcy, who voiced Ducky in A Land Before Time, was murdered at 10 by her abusive father, alongside her mother. Her death, as the research materials note, sparked changes in how the entertainment industry handles signs of child abuse, but questions linger about others who suffered silently. Millie Bobby Brown emerges as a contemporary parallel. Known for her role as Eleven in Stranger Things, Brown has transitioned successfully to roles in Enola Holmes and Godzilla vs. Kong. Her vocal advocacy for mental health, strong family support, and careful career management suggest a more promising trajectory than many predecessors. However, the pressures of fame and social media scrutiny mean she must continue to receive robust support to avoid the pitfalls faced by earlier stars. Corey Feldman and Mara Wilson have become advocates, calling for greater protections and accountability. Their voices are vital for change. There's a moral imperative to ensure entertainment doesn't come at the cost of children's well-being. Consumers can demand better treatment by supporting ethical productions and holding studios accountable. Organizations like A Minor Consideration, founded by former child star Paul Peterson, advocate for stronger laws and support for young performers. Broader implications and cultural impact. The tragedies of these child stars reveal systemic flaws in the entertainment industry that persist today. The studio system's commodification of young talent, coupled with parental greed and societal pressures, created a toxic environment. The rise of social media and reality TV has introduced new forms of exploitation. Shows like Toddlers and Tiaras and child influencer platforms raise concerns about consent and privacy, subjecting young performers to constant scrutiny and cyberbullying. Consumers can drive change by supporting ethical productions and advocating for young performers. Organizations like A Minor Consideration, founded by former child star Paul Peterson, push for better laws. The research materials note that only 1 in 10 child actors continue working as adults, per Screen Actors Guild study, highlighting the need for support beyond financial protections. These tragedies have left a mark on Hollywood and popular culture, leading to increased awareness and legislative changes like the Coogan Act and stricter labor laws. However, the research materials suggest these measures haven't been sufficient. Recent cases like Lindsay Lohan and Amanda Bynes' public struggles with addiction and mental health indicate that problems persist. The hashtag #MeToo movement, as noted in the research materials, exposed ongoing abuse, suggesting that power imbalances remain. The rise of social media and reality TV has created new avenues for exploitation. Shows like Toddlers and Tiaras and child influencer YouTube channels raise concerns about privacy and consent. The stakes are high. Without proactive steps, history could repeat itself. This requires not just legal protections, but also mental health support, education, and pathways to normalcy. Mental health support is crucial. Programs offering counseling can help child stars navigate fame's challenges. Education is another key area. Proper schooling, not just on-set tutoring, can prepare them for life beyond acting. Parents must prioritize their child's well-being over fame. The global nature of entertainment means exploitation can occur where laws are less stringent. Social media and influencer culture raise new concerns about child exploitation. What regulations are needed to protect young influencers? How can we ensure education and mental health are prioritized? How do we hold studios and parents accountable? These complex issues require ongoing dialogue and action. Consumers can support ethical productions and show compassion for struggling celebrities. The research materials urge us to honor their memory by demanding better for the young performers who follow in their footsteps. As we conclude, these stories are lessons for the present and future. By learning from them, we can work toward a world where talent is nurtured without exploitation, and every child can grow up healthy and whole. Thank you for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe for more in-depth stories. What do you think? Have things changed in Hollywood? Or are we still seeing the same patterns? Share your thoughts in the comments below.